Alright, we've got the one package. With the one item in it. Dead Mount Deathblade, Part 2. Blu-ray only. Regions A and B. Audio. English, French, German, Japanese. Alright, and always nice when it's different on the slipcover. I don't think there was a box version of Part 1 or Part 2 here. It's nice to get this. It was enjoyable, even if, you know, it kind of had its flaws. Really excellent premise. At least a fun first couple episodes. Can't tell what that background is. Is it just a spooky room? Maybe a bunch of spooky eyes? Okay. Fun stuff. Alright. Yeah, it's small, but here's this week's physical anime collection update. Alright, we've got quite a list to go down here. So, to begin with my Friday friend, I watched excuse me, the burp hiccup stuff just wants to start as soon as I start talking. I watched Free Rent episodes 17 through 21. And, you know, that's a good handful of episodes. Some really great stuff, some really exciting stuff. Some of the scenes I like to rewatch come from that group of episodes. The next batch of episodes being also pretty great. So, looking forward to a lot of pretty great stuff there. Dub. Definitely some of the stuff here, I prefer the original Japanese dub more, but yeah, I think it's like the rest of it. I think if you're only watching it dubbed, it's okay. I don't remember if I said this on camera or not. I kind of had this thought that I wondered if there was some of the misinterpretations I've heard from people about some of the things the show's pretty explicit about. I'm wondering if some of those could come from just the dub not quite conveying things the same way the original audio did. But maybe I did say that last time. I don't remember if I said that to y'all or to my friend that I'm watching with. But, you know, overall, Freeman is Freeman. Very nice stuff. I also finished watching Vermeil Gold. Now, granted, that's only one season. If they ever come up with a second season, obviously, if you're watching this 5 years in the future, you're like, Giga for us, what a dumb you are. Well, you know, you wouldn't actually say that. You know that, yeah, okay. I finished watching the episodes 7 through 12 that were there. And I'd say overall it was okay. Nice enough stuff. Did I have any thoughts? I did like the fact that as a show with its kind of premise, its relationship between the main two characters, or the main character and his demon friend, is actually nice, well-defined, not so, oh, we're going to spend 12 episodes just doing teasing. But even before this point, it wasn't just teasing. It's nice that it's not stuck in that mold, I guess. Well, anyways, you know, I'm trying to think if I have any other thoughts about it other than seem decent enough. Bogus Skill Fruit Master, episode 2. So some of the stuff I said about episode 1 was just like, okay, we definitely have to see some of this stuff, and it did some of the things I was talking about and predicting. But overall, it really does sort of feel like it, well, maybe it's not bad. It does still feel kind of shakily assembled. Like I think when I describe it that way, what I'm describing is maybe maybe having some trouble doing a complete suspension of disbelief. Like, I can sort of see the artificial constructs of the show itself, because there's some elements of it that are like, okay, I kind of understand that, but it also feels questionably arbitrary. Like they have the A-rank party and they're lavishly treated, but kind of to a degree where it's like, I don't know, I sort of feel like the economics, even if it's not necessarily financial economics, but maybe just like, I don't know, some of it feels strange. Like, I'm not sure how much of it makes sense from the world standing on its own. It doesn't necessarily not make sense, but it's, I don't know, something about it just doesn't feel completely put together. And it, I guess maybe that was part of, I mean, there's plenty of shows like that. Maybe this one was just not quite fun enough to hide that, I guess. I don't know. I'm still going to give it one more episode at a minimum. I mean, probably more, because it's like the only thing that airs on Tuesdays according to my list here. So, you know, no reason to continue watching it. Especially since it's like, if I'm spending a day playing catch-up, Tuesday's the worst day because I'm recording this video on Monday, and Monday's when I have to have everything watched that I'm going to have watched by the time I record this video. But, you know, definitely still going to give it another episode. Possibly The Greatest Alchemist, episode 2. Let's see. What happened in this episode? Because I remember enjoying it, but I'm not sure if I'm enjoying it so much as I'm remembering very well. I could also just be really tired. But now I'm trying to remember. Okay, yeah, that was a different show. Huh. Well, I'm having trouble remembering what happened. I've had it before, but yeah. Oh well. I do recall just enjoying it. I think if it were Wednesday, that would probably still be the top thing of the 3 shows I'm watching on Wednesday that I would be looking forward to. We also had Ameku MD Dr. Detective, episode 3, and I think it's fine. There's a chance I may drop the show just because whilst the stuff it's doing is neat, the characters are rubbing off on me not perfectly well. The main character is a bit too out there, I think, in a certain degree. I think it could be cute and endearing, but maybe I'm just not feeling into that sort of cute and endearing, I guess. But also there was the lady from the psychology ward, and it's just like, man, fuck you, bitch. Because I looked at this one, and I'm like, huh. Well, it's taking the same angle that the first mystery that was covered in episodes 1 and 2, and that it's giving something that sounds supernatural, and then it's going with a not-so-supernatural thing. But I kind of sort of figured it would be doing that, and I guessed what was going wrong here, and it's just like that they had to make the psychiatric ward person such a bitch just to kind of get this one through. It's like, do you not have any imagination? It's like the first thing I would have thought of isn't, oh, well, I guess somebody's just depressed and blah, 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 blah. It's like, do you not look for other things? I mean, maybe even that's a bit too far. Hopefully when you see it, that's not spoiler, because it's pretty fucking obvious it wasn't depression. And you also know, because of the way the show is, that it's supposed to be within the realm of medical likelihood. It's just this one didn't catch me by surprise. You could say that it covers things that maybe I've experienced in life a bit more, but I don't know. I just remember really hating that. Not being too impressed with what happened, mostly because some punchable-faced people's like, why didn't you fucking consider that? Oh well. A bit of a strange thing. Magic Maker, How to Make Magic in Another World, episode 1. It's a strange first episode. There are three things I really liked about this first episode. I like the fact that it is a resurrection isekai show, but at least this first episode is told from somebody else's point of view entirely. And that was actually kind of neat and refreshing, and it really helps that person, the older sister, she's just a really neat character. It's like, you've definitely had anime where you've had older sisters that are obsessed about younger brothers, but this is one where it feels like it's so much more practical and wholesome. And the fact that it's also about building up magic systems is really neat. But the main problem is they kind of established this thing where it's like, okay, because they showed sibling camaraderie to a certain degree, it's kind of like fishes doing a mating thing, and that it just made it weird. Because everything else about the first episode I thought was really great. Although I don't know if it gives us a good idea of what the rest of the show is like, because I get the impression, based on the very end of the first episode, that we'll see the rest of it maybe more from his perspective, which is unfortunate. He's not a bad MC per se, although we didn't get to see too much of him, so I don't know how much saying that is actually good. But his sister was definitely a really refreshing breath of fresh air. Just a very kind of noble soul in a certain way. Well, I guess we'll have to see what the rest of the episodes bring. Let me see. Daily Life of a Middle-Aged Online Shopper in Another World, Episode 1. I thought it was pretty fun. Let's see. It had its own take on certain things that are very common tropes, and I think that's pretty good. I'm still highly questioning the opening, I think, which kind of shows him in a transforming construction thing. It's like, okay, well, that would cost a lot of billions of dollars here, because I don't think we know how to build something like that yet. So I don't know what to make of that, but I just remember he interacted with some of the characters. They were all really neat and interesting. The Beast People was a very interesting thing, especially since I kind of established that, math is just kind of a good skill to have in these situations, because not a lot of people have it. The way they interacted, the way they're designed is, like, the full furry ones are, I guess, kind of stereotypical, kind of. And usually when they do that and they have the girls look a little more feminine, it makes sense. But what was, I guess, really strange was they have more of their body being furred than usual. At least that's what it seems like. And I don't know. I guess she was only there very briefly, but obviously she's in either the opening, the ending, or both, or something like that. So, curious about all that. Just to see how it's going to play out. But, yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a fun first episode, and they did that. And they did set up for episode 2, so, yeah, off to a fun start, I guess. Dr. Stone, Science Feature, Season 4, Episode 1. So, technically, it's Season 4, Science Feature is the name of the season. Blah, blah, blah. It's what I have in my notes, copied and placed everywhere. And I wasn't quite sure what to think of the first episode, because it describes a description like, okay, as much as the human element is something it feels it needs to play with for good reason, I think. Because probably if it was just the science stuff, it probably wouldn't reach as broad of an audience, I suppose. But no, once you watch it, you're like, okay, yeah, it's in there. And the simuldub helps a lot because, I've been watching it dubbed since the very beginning, so it's nice to be able to be consistent in that regard. So, Season 4 off to a fine enough start. I'm definitely interested to see how quickly it's going to move forward and do sciencey stuff. I do worry about the fact that we do see more people on the front, and we'll just have to see how that does, because for me, the least exciting part of it has been the person-to-person conflict, which is interesting, because usually that's I know it's something that's absolutely vital, and conflict has been an important part of the show and stuff. But I just thought that the conflict of needing to come back against nature and sort of reinvent absolutely everything that humankind has reinvented, I thought that was sufficient. And I think a lot of people really like that part of it, but I'm sure other people like the other parts of it. The parts where it's like, yeah, now we have to go against these other people who, I don't know, feels like stress that I don't want. But it's still a good episode. From bureaucrat to villainous, bureaucrat. Sorry, how did I pronounce that? Bureaucrat to villainous, Dad's been reincarnated, episode 1. I thought it was a nice, heartful one. This is another one of your tropes where it's like, okay, they're villainous and they don't do a good job at villainessing. Even though they kind of think, oh yes, that's a very villainous thing to do, but they're actually being really neat. But this one comes from the, fortunately not dumb, but maybe a little bit not completely aware of himself, bureaucratic dad. You know, he's a 50-year-old who got resurrected as a teenage girl in an Otome game, the villainous, of course. And, you know, it just his interactions and his decisions, I thought they made sense. They were kind of fun with the premise. And again, heartfelt sort of stuff where it's just like, yeah, you know, it would take a show with a kind older dad, I guess, doing that sort of stuff. I guess we'll just have to see what happens after episode 1, if it continues to be good. Even given the worthless appraiser class, I'm actually the strongest episode 1. Yeah. I think it feels like I can still watch it a bit, but I guess my issue is maybe episode 1 felt a little too mean-spirited. And of course, you kind of have to compare it to Rising of the Shield Hero, because that's the first season of that show is not exactly a masterclass, but it is a really strong example of, I guess, kind of how to do rage correct. And I think it kind of helps that the unfairness is there, but it isn't like too stacked, I guess. Like, I guess maybe this one just felt like it was too cruel, maybe to the point of breaking suspension of disbelief. But I guess we will have to see what happens after this. It could just be a kind of stumbling first episode. It's just that, I don't know, I find it hard to believe that the mid-level adventures that he was traveling with would be able to. It's like a little too on the nose, I guess. Just like, okay, they're treating him bad. They're treating him very, very bad. Whereas with Shield Hero, you could kind of tell there was something they had against the Shield Hero. But they at least were able to play it off as like people were just like, and then certain bad things happen. He goes to a dark place. Whatever. Yeah, we'll have to see more of that. Dragon Ball Daima came back from its very short break, episode 13. It was kind of a mediocre episode, I would say. You know, some of that whimsy. But I guess it feels like a complete distraction. I don't know that it really built up anything for us. One of the nice things it did give us was Bulma and Pansy interacting in a techie way. Pansy in the lead, and Bulma actually playing second fiddle very well. A little bit of world building and a little bit of, yeah. But, you know, they kind of introduce, oh, here's these giant things, and I can't help but think, why is this a problem for the Saiyans? I mean, I could understand if it was a problem for, like, Raditz level Saiyans or something like that. Oh well. Well, hopefully the next episode feels improved. Welcome to Japan, Miss Elf, Episode 1. I think it's off to an okay start. Maybe not the start I was necessarily hoping for. And I think what's really missing is, a show like this works really well when you have this isekai character just kind of experiencing our world for this. Right? This is a reverse isekai, which is technically an isekai, but it's not an isekai from our perspective, it's an isekai from their perspective. And when you have somebody from the medieval fantasy world coming here, it's just really neat to see them experience this stuff. It's why some episodes, like the episodes of Gate, where the characters from the other side of the gate come to Japan, it's just like, those are actually some pretty awesome scenes. And the scenes where, like, the army is there and you feel the army presence there, and it's how they're experiencing what our world would imply for them, those are fun. And while I don't expect this one to be as intense as Gate, it definitely shouldn't be, because you could, if that's your only premise, you could burn yourself out really quick. But it also felt like it wasn't doing it as much as I would have hoped. And it's hard for me to remember every single minute of it. But I do appreciate the fact that it at least knew, okay, we're starting with the premise that he's in his dream, he's in this medieval fantasy world. They do a little bit of world building there. But I think they kept it at about the right pace, where they needed to show us that they're not rushing through things. They wanted to introduce us to some stuff there. Some of it didn't feel 100% natural, but it was still like 90% natural or something like that. Pretty good stuff. But also quick, like, don't build that world too much, because we're supposed to appreciate Miss Elf experiencing Japan. Yeah. Good enough first episode, I think. Ubel Blot, Episode 1. Something about this feels a little off, but it doesn't feel wrong. So, something about the way the story was told in the first episode, I'm not exactly sure what it is. Something that makes it hard to tell what I would feel for the show as a whole. Like, it had events happen. Wait, was this a video game? Maybe it's because it's having to do a video game adaptation to an anime, and so the pacing doesn't feel correct or something like that. I'm trying to remember, because I know I threw the name into Google a couple of times and I probably saw what it originally was. I don't know. Definitely I'm going to watch a bit more, because it feels like it could be neat, but I guess maybe because of the way they implemented it, I'm not entirely sure what sort of show. I think we got the idea that the one character is definitely going for revenge against the heroes, and I'm definitely interested to see what that means, what that manifests as. But I guess I'm not quite sure if this will be a show where we just see them doing that the whole time. Maybe that means there's a feeling of, we know there's a personal connection, but maybe I haven't felt attached to that. I don't know. I don't know how much of that could just be my own. I mean, I'm watching a shit ton of stuff. I'm going through this list very slow. I'm sorry about that. I may be a guild receptionist, but I'll solo any boss to clock out on time, Episode 1. I think it's off to a good enough start. We will definitely have to see what the next couple of episodes bring us, because the premise that they show us at the very beginning is entertaining enough to say, okay, I'll give it a shot, because I kind of want to see what it is. It's a funny setup. But I guess the question is it a one-trick pony that only does that? What does the future of this actually imply? And that's a real problem with its setup, is it's hard to tell if this will be entertaining from an episode by episode basis. It seems very possible, but we'll have to see beyond Episode 1 to know for certain. Let me see. Beheneko Efko's cat is secretly an S-ray monster, Episode 3. There was an Episode 3 earlier, wasn't there? I was just thinking that Yeah, okay, it was there. So yeah, this is the second episode 3 on the list. Episode 3 is when you have to start saying, okay, what do I make of this from the 3-episode rule? I might continue watching it. It's hard to say. It definitely has that medieval fantasy kick that I like. I guess some elements of it maybe feel like they don't make sense because, like, okay, they haven't established that the main elf girl character is, like, legendary or anything like that. Like, if anything, she was more like a beloved, not exactly newbie, but still pretty fresh. So it seems kind of weird when they start talking about demon stuff and she's like, I have to go. Something about the way it's executed just feels like it's the plot saying, yeah, she's going to go there because we're going to watch our main character kick butt. And I don't know. Maybe it means that the show maybe sometimes gets a little too distracted by its erotic tantalization moments. I'm trying to think of a better word for that, but unfortunately brain's only certain verbs or words. See, I'm not even wording right. But, yeah. Based on 3 episodes, I guess I wouldn't necessarily expect a strong story, and maybe not the strongest moment to moment as an episode to episode. But it might still be fun, so I might still continue watching it. I guess we'll find out. Solo Leveling Season 2. So last week I called it Episode 1, but I think Crunchyroll labeled it Episode 13. So Season 2, Episode 1 is Episode 13. Season 2, Episode 2 is 14. I'm going to call it Episode 14 because from this moment on, I'm going to start forgetting what episode number it was. I might remember that's Episode 3 next week, but beyond that, you know, I'm going to start forgetting. But, once again, fun, I guess. The only problem with these first 2 episodes, I would actually say, is you have this one guy who was outside the portal who's like, well, I can't wait for him to come back out because I want to get revenge on him. And it's like, I kind of understand why this is sort of important, but I also feel like I don't fucking care. I want to see what our main character is doing. So it feels a little bit of a distraction, but other than that, you know, episode 14 here, I think provided some more entertaining stuff. Interesting ideas that it played with here and there. Some good scenes that I think some people may actually go back and rewatch. You know, rewatchable stuff. So, decent enough episode. I'm Living with an Otaku Ni Kunoichi, episode 2. I'm probably going to drop it. It's not that it's bad. It's just that I guess I'm not feeling what would be motivating me to continue watching this. There's a bit of a whimsicalness, maybe a comedy element to it that I'm not sure is making me laugh too much. I mean, kind of entertaining conceptually. I wouldn't blame anybody that wanted to continue watching it for those reasons, but, you know, I just kind of have my own, I guess, I don't know. It's like, I'm trying to think, because it was during the, it's also really strange that every episode is actually 2 episodes, which isn't necessarily strange in and of itself. There's plenty of shows out there that do it. It's just weird because you see the opening and ending credits twice each. But, yeah, it was during the first half of this episode where I'm like, she's an amusing character. The luck thing is kind of funny. But I guess I just don't feel it. And then the second part of it, I mean, that person, I just don't like their attitude. I really just don't like them. They did reveal some interesting truths about them. But it's not the sort of thing it's like, okay, well, yeah, they still just did this shitty thing. And they were kind of shitty-brained when they briefly showed up in episode 1. I don't know. Maybe not tickling my funny bone, I guess. I left my A-rank party to help my former students research the dungeon depths, episode 1. I think off to a good start, and probably one of the more understandable, oh, the person got kicked out of the party, but they were secretly OP things. Like, I think others have had good mechanisms that kind of explain some of it. Like, the maximum defense one, the tamer one, I think made some sense, maybe a little bit of sense. It's like they've really not experienced any other tamers ever whatsoever to know that, oh, these easy things he were doing were actually OP. No, instead our main character seemed to be managing things, supporting things from a managing perspective, to the point where it's like, okay, now it's really convenient that the party he's in is all girls, fine, whatever. It's common for a lot of these shows to want to show somebody getting a plethora of female interest, but it also felt like it's like maybe he was just doing so many little things at once that the party he was in before didn't understand how much he was helping. And the new party he's with, even though they're newbies, they're about to, kind of start taking off. And I kind of appreciate that it's a party, and it may be a party change sort of thing that happens, and it might not play some of the tropes the same way. So it's off to a decent start, I thought. Let me see. I Want to Escape from Princess Lessons, episode 2. I'm still on the fence on this show. So episode 2 was interesting because, episode 1 kind of gave us okay, this is from her point of view, which I would want the rest of the show to be as well. But it's from her point of view as she's going through these times of, she's been chosen to be betrothed to the prince, and she's going through princess lessons, and these are her experiences, and the teacher seems like a horrible teacher to me. I mean, I wouldn't say that there are some elements of it that aren't really good ideas, but it seems like, I don't know. What is the saying? You attract more flies with honey than vinegar, or something like that? Something like that. And it's like, vinegar would be nice compared to that bitch, because she's just not only the stereotypical stuck up princess lesson teacher person, she's got an entire fucking forest up her ass or something like that. Or something like that. So episode 2 is when we really get to see, okay, what does it mean that she's now out of that, and what is some of the draw? And there are little things about it that I actually really liked. Like her going fishing, there's something actually pretty mesmerizing about it. Just yeah, I could have that on in the background. And it's not like she's sitting there fishing, it's just, there's a certain eye to it where it's like, oh wow, she's really good at that. That's really neat to watch. When they have her go to town and she interacts with all the people in town, that was a little on the nose. I guess that's some of the problem with some of this. It's like, they say, well, did he actually ever? It's like, it really doesn't matter, because if it says, oh, he actually just did it to make her jealous, it's like, time to defect to another kingdom, because you don't want that kind of piece of shit running your kingdom. And I think that there's supposed to be a certain element of that to it. I mean, not that we're supposed to not like the prince. I think we're supposed to, but I don't think that forgives him. And to a certain degree, I think some of the goal of the show is supposed to end up being, he doesn't like her for the princess they want to train her to be. He likes her because of her free-spirited nature, which is actually fun to watch. Not like super fun, I would say, but fun. So that's why I'm a little bit on the fence, because sometimes it's a little bit on the nose. Sometimes I'm like, I disagree. Get the fucking lawyers in here now. Little things like that. But I don't know. We'll see if I watch episode 3 or not. I might give it the 3-episode treatment. Zenshu, I finally watched episode 1, and I think last week I said there were 2 episodes, but that was just that confusing Crunchyroll thing where it's including the trailer in the list of episodes, and it's like, well, probably that helps with other people. For me, it just confused things, but I did watch the first 2 episodes. First episode, which was last week, second episode, which was this week. Honestly, I could have actually been sold really quickly on the first episode if somebody said, yeah, and there's a Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind reference in there. And it was a really interesting reference because, there's just enough little things in there that you're like, I see, that's what the reference is. Sort of like how episode 2 referenced the animation style of Okay, yeah, now it's a bunch of lions chasing after a character. You've probably seen that in a lot of action anime. Freerun does it. But a lot of shows, they kind of have that thing because that's I guess, a thing they like to animate sometimes. And I think that episode 2 referenced that. Overall, I think what's been funny, our main character's personality or attitude has been a little bit, I don't know, sort of like she understands she's been isekai'd into another world and she doesn't necessarily know the rules of that sort of stuff, but at the same time, it feels like she acts like an entitled person. Sometimes, I mean, it's not always that bad, but it also plays. She plays that to her strength sometimes, and the most fun thing in these 2 episodes has been when she tells things like they are, and she's like, "No, I of course I want to hang out here in the anime with all the anime characters and look up all your reference sheets," and they'll be like, "Okay, I have no idea what half those words you just said were." The telling it like it is funny, and the way they like. Is she crazy? Maybe, but Jesus Christ, I have to listen to her because she's also correct. It's fun. It's been a fun first couple of episodes. I guess we'll have to see how it continues from there. I expect decent things. The Red Ranger becomes an adventure in another world, episode 1. I guess we'll have to see. It's an amusing enough first episode. I'm not sure if the timeline feels like it makes sense or if we got a good feel for things or if we missed stuff that would have been the most fun, but hard to say because sometimes it's the culture shock, but he's not supposed to be a stereotypical isekai person because he's the Red Ranger. And so it's just sort of like the Sentai elements are shoehorning themselves in there, and it's amusing enough for the first episode, and I can kind of see how this would be setting itself up for, I guess, where it might want to end. But for the most part, I think it was an okay first episode. If somebody really liked it, I wouldn't be surprised. But I guess I'm not sure what to expect from it in the future. I sort of expect their party of adventurers to grow, and for that to be a Sentai power of bonds sort of thing. Oh, we have to keep making friends to get powerful enough to do something important in the show. And the things they've established are interesting enough, but I don't know. Sometimes it feels like it's a little on the nose. Maybe not quite as well executed as the he tells it like it is sort of thing. Like Zenshu definitely did that one in the most fun way I wouldn't have thought it could be done as. Whereas Red Ranger's okay in that regard. But yeah, we'll have to see. Let me see. Still no Ari Ferretta, episode 12. Next we get Headhunted to Another World from Salaryman to Big 4, episode 3. This is an episode 3, so an evaluation point. I thought it was another interesting episode. This one, okay. So this one had that interesting thing where it's like, okay, obviously you have to bring cooking there. But I feel like it's some of the most natural stuff. Like, some of the cooking stuff, it's like, okay. There was one of how... Was it How a Realist Rebuilt the Kingdom, or was that another one? The one where they're like, okay, well, we've got food problems here, so here's some cooking ideas. Let's just add sugar and salt to everything. And it's just like, Jesus fucking Christ. Those are usually rare things in medieval fantasy. So if you're not going to address that elephant in the room, I'm not going to be able to take you to... Oh, well, the idea of drying and eating slime as if they're noodles is actually pretty cool. I think a couple other shows have maybe done stuff along those lines too. So you can have stuff like that where it's just like, okay, obviously people are going to like fried chicken and campfire cooking because nobody doesn't like fried chicken. And I'm being a little hyperbolic, of course. But the point is, for Headhunted, this is the one where, okay, he introduced a little bit of cooking, but their explanation for why him introducing some really basic cooking actually made a big deal and helped people a lot. But otherwise, it continues to be about a lot of the stuff that the show's been up to this point, and it's, I think, entertaining. It's definitely not a work-life thing. There's elements of it that are just like work-lifey, but they're such isekai fantasy work-life sorts of stuff that it's definitely melding the two components of it really good, really well. So, that one's good. And then episode 2 of I'm a Noble on the brink of ruin, so I might as well try mastering magic. You know, because the first 2 episodes aired at the same time, and we got episode 3. I guess it's okay, fun stuff. This one, it's a little easier to overlook some of the problems, because, you know, I think I understand the funness of it. It's sometimes a little bit straightforward with some of its stuff, but it's fine. Fun enough. Alright. I think that's everything. Let me see. Do I have anything video game wise to talk about? I did finally pick up Animal Crossing again. Maybe I mentioned that last time, I don't remember. But this past week I finally got the motivation to actually start making development on my 3rd island, and I finally got it up to 5 stars. I did have to do a little time traveling. If you don't know, that just means turning the auto sync of the clock off and then exiting the game, move forward a day, go back in the game, do some stuff, save, exit, repeat. So you can keep moving forward in time. And the main thing was I had a problem with this island because of how very specifically it was engineered. I didn't want to go very heavy on flowers, and I especially wanted to go super light on trees. Like, I guess I could have done fruit trees for some of the ideas, but I also want it to feel a little dystopian, I guess. And so it can't go too crazy with all that stuff. And I was having trouble getting nature up, which you can... I guess it's actually your scenic points up, which normally you can do by... you know, if you're not doing it with... Well, flowers is the number one way to do it. Usually keeping a lot of your trees and organizing them is a way that a lot of islands do it. But you can also do it with constructed furniture. And maybe there's problems where maybe some of that was... Maybe I was losing points in some of that. It just seemed like when I was doing that, even though I was creating some rather elaborate and dystopian feeling things, it wasn't quite doing what I needed it to do to get me up there. I was stuck at 2 stars. See, I got up to 3 stars to terraform, and then by the time I was done terraforming, it's like, okay, now it's back down to 1 star. And maybe a lot of effort, I got it to 2 stars. So I was having trouble getting my scenic values up, and I ended up planting a lot of crops. And it looked to me like if I treated crops like flowers, there was no way the shit ton of crops I planted were going to not bring me up to 5 stars. And I think maybe, you know, we didn't entirely understand. I don't think there's a lot of understanding or documentation out there in terms of how crops contribute to scenic. There was an assumption that maybe they're a lot like flowers, because, you know, they kind of have similar stages of growth. I suspect that's not the case. And I could probably do something to verify for certain, but I did eventually reach a point where, as far along as I was, it's like, okay, the crops weren't enough. I just needed, I don't know how many more I needed to plant, somewhere between 1 to 19 flowers. I did have a hidden spot I was planning to put flowers, because basically once you reach 5 stars and you start getting lilies of the valley, one thing you can do with those that's kind of nice is you can use those to kind of make sure your scenic stays pretty good, I guess. But yeah, anyways, I finally did that. I'm finally at 5 stars. And because I was pretty sure that the crops would get me very close, if not actually there, and I was pretty sure they were going to actually get me there. Because of that, it meant that I was also able to build up all the other elements of it that I had planned and a couple of other things. And overall, I like where it's come out. I'm probably going to just sit at it for a while, see if I can gather more lilies of the valley, and probably play the other games a bit. My other 2 copies a bit to kind of keep things moving as well. We'll have to see how I feel. If anything, my 3rd island here is the most easy to maintain from a day-to-day perspective. So I might be able to keep at it. Then we'll just see how long all that stuff takes to do, I guess. Well, yeah, that was pretty much the main thing. I don't think I've played Dead by Daylight in the last week. Maybe I'm waiting for the next thing to come out. I don't know. I'm just so tired these days. Don't know if I have anything else to really think about or talk about. So, hopefully y'all hearing me blabber for however long this has been, 45 minutes now probably, it's been entertaining enough. Y'all, you'll have a nice week.